but mostly just supporting our church family in any way that I can. Most of the counseling now is done around the dinner table.
That's good. That's probably the most important counseling that we're called to do anyway, right?
Yes. Yes.
I have a question for you starting off. So you work with a lot of young kids,
Yes.
young adults who are growing. They're trying to mature, right? And I'm not in that field, but I'm seeing it from afar. There's seems to be a lot more anxiety and fears, I guess, than what I remember growing up. Do you kind of see that? And how do you help them deal with that?
Absolutely. I actually referenced it Sunday in the message, I believe, where I recently read that the average student today faces anxiety to the levels that in the 1950s they would have put them in an insane asylum and labeled them as having a nervous breakdown. That's the level of anxiety that students face today. We have a lot more coping mechanisms. We have a lot more information to deal with what used to would have been a definitive diagnosis. But yes, students are faced with so much more anxiety, mostly because of the information that's given to them in technology. And so one of the things to look at is in our grandparents, or I'm older than y'all, but in my grandparents' day, they got information several days after an event happened. So if there was an earthquake on one side of the world, it would have taken them days to get that information, possibly in the newspaper after the weekend. In my parents' day, it was the 10 o'clock news. And today it is right on your cell phone within minutes of an event happening. And so it's changed the way that we don't have much time to process information. We're constantly bombarded with information. And because of the lack of time to process the information, we are stuffing it down and we're dealing with a lot more anxiety than what we had previously had to deal with at one time.
Yeah. I'd like to dive a lot deeper into the mindset, because I think you shared a lot of good stuff pre-recording and then on Sunday too. But any advice for mom and dad, right, that's listening to this, maybe to catch it before it gets bad, but just real quick, any advice for mom and dad that can help their kids with that?
Okay, so there's one thing to remember, and that is that children process differently than adults do. And so do not give them or promote your feelings or put your feelings on your child, because they are not going to process it the way that you do. That's an unfair thing to do. So just be cautious of that. Remember that they are children. They have the mind of a child, and they're going to process things like a child. But it may look like struggling to get them to sleep. They don't want to close their eyes. They don't want to get ready for bed because they're worried about something. Or they may start having headaches or stomach aches at school that show that they're struggling with some level of anxiety or fear. So the best thing to do is, number one, listen, open up avenues of conversation, sit around the dinner table at night, talk about, hey, how was your day? But ask pointed questions. How did that make you feel? What did you do in response to that? Those kinds of things. And then remember that you're helping them process it. You don't want them to process it like we would, but teaching them to stand up for themselves, to express in a safe way how they're feeling will go a long way. And then don't ever be afraid to ask for help. Don't ever be afraid to reach out to a Christian counselor and allow them to have another avenue to talk things out.
Yeah, that's really good. So really being involved, right? And really
Yes.
taking notice and being aware instead of just going through life right there. Yeah.
My kids talk